Joining us on this week's Tech Volatility and the 2024 race for the White House, Joe Lonsdale is here, Palantir co-founder and founding partner, of course, of 8VC and so many other things. It's nice to see you, Joe. We've had a heck of a week in the markets. I know you play in the private markets, but all of these things are interrelated, and I'm sort of curious just how you think our economy and which way our economy is moving at this point.
Well, Andrew, it was fun to see the Palantir earnings right after 2 days of the markets all falling apart, kind of saying, by the way, guys, this AI stuff's actually working. We're actually growing really fast. And it felt like it turned things around a little bit. I mean, listen, I think a lot of the volatility this week was tied to things like Japanese banks, which obviously are an important part of the global economy. But, the story here in the U.S. is that our companies are working, our innovation economy is growing really quickly. So we may be facing some macro headwinds, but the AI stuff's real.
Well, so that was the question. Palantir has made this work. The question is that idiosyncratic, which is to say, is there something special going on at Palantir that may not be going on across the industry, or do you think that there actually is more meaningful legs to this? You saw the Goldman Sachs report probably in the past week where they suggested maybe actually that we're not going to get the kind of sort of growth gains out of AI, at least immediately, than some people had anticipated.
Yeah, I don't think this is happening immediately. I think if you talk to people like Sam Altman and OpenAI and others, it's like we've in a sense, we've failed so far because it's not impacting the entire economy right away. Now, that said, the services industry in the U.S. is about $4.5 trillion in wages. Probably about a third of that can be addressed and be made more productive with AI and higher productivity. So it makes all of us wealthier. We're seeing things like in healthcare billing, logistics billing, the back end, TPA processes and insurance. We're seeing this in private companies get to be a lot more productive. We're tripling, quadrupling the productivity. That's not going to happen where it scales out to the whole economy overnight. But listen, if we're back here and it's 2027, 2028, and we're not seeing that in productivity statistics, I'll be really surprised.
In a stock market buzzing with attention-grabbing headlines and unpredictable twists, one piece of news has investors and analysts alike sitting at the edge of their seats. Palantir Technologies has set its sights on the stars with a robust new partnership that's poised to accelerate its integration into U.S. government operations. This time, the data analytics behemoth has joined forces with none other than the tech titan, Microsoft. The initiative aims to bolster the deployment of artificial intelligence in defense and intelligence agencies, potentially transforming Palantir's fortunes in the government sector. But can this alliance truly launch Palantir Stock to the moon? Let's delve deeper into this significant development. But before we do that, if you want to keep up with Palantir's latest updates and keep up with the stock market's latest news, you can follow our Twitter account. We post multiple times daily about the biggest changes and catalysts in the market, so click the follow button if you don't want to miss the newest market updates. Now, back to today's video.
What about things like Apple? We watched Warren Buffett, get out of half of his position effectively in the company. But more importantly, the question becomes, does a company like that have a sort of massive supercycle upgrade this fall? Or is that something that you think ends up ultimately getting pushed out farther in terms of something that is truly game-changing?
There's lots of really cool stuff we could do with consumers and AI. I use these little things all the time to ask them questions. It's really helpful to figure out what's going on in the world, to draw pictures with your kids. Does this change Apple's business in the next year? Probably not. Apple's facing really strong headwinds from a lot of new Chinese competitors. It's not clear to me the new phones are nearly as good relative to the old phones versus what we saw 10 years ago. So they may have a little bit of a tougher time.
Palantir Technologies, often a favorite in stock portfolios for its prowess in data analytics, seems to have hit a stumbling block with its core government clientele over recent years. Despite its initial success, particularly with U.S. intelligence agencies, the company faced a deceleration in government revenue growth. As intriguingly data-centric as the company is, one might sarcastically imagine Palantir struggling to find the right algorithm for consistent government sales. In 2022, government-related revenue growth slackened to 19%, dipping even further to 14% in 2023. While the commercial sector burgeoned, the government sector lagged, a sobering reality for investors. Enter Microsoft, a powerhouse in technology with an expansive cloud infrastructure. The new partnership aims to revitalize Palantir's U.S. government business by embedding its suite of analytical products within Microsoft's government cloud solutions, such as Azure Government and Azure Top Secret. By leveraging Microsoft's vast capabilities, Palantir intends to execute faster AI deployments and training boot camps for the defense and intelligence community. The venture hinges on integrating Microsoft's Azure's OpenAI service, including GPT-4, into Palantir's acclaimed Foundry software and its artificial intelligence platform. On a crisp August day, just days after an impressive second-quarter earnings report, Palantir announced this groundbreaking partnership. Data reveals that Palantir experienced a 23% year-over-year growth in total government revenue to $371 million in the second quarter of 2024. U.S. government-specific revenue showed a similar pattern, increasing by 24% to $278 million. Nevertheless, these figures trailed behind Palantir's commercial revenue growth, which soared by 33% to $307 million within the same time frame. Evidently, Palantir's commercial side has enjoyed a growth spurt, especially in the U.S., boasting a formidable 55% year-over-year uptick to $159 million. The newly inked alliance aims to harmonize these figures by jump-starting U.S. government revenue via cloud solutions designed to make AI integration a smoother, quicker process. But that's not all of it. So let's keep rolling. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Investocracy.
I want to move towards politics, but I want to start with policy first. Curious what your reaction was to the judge's decision against Google this week, effectively calling it a monopoly.
You know, I've been on this for a long time with little tech versus big tech, as Mark Andreessen said really well recently. I'm a fighter for little tech. I'm a fighter for the innovation economy. I think a lot of these big tech companies have become not only kind of slow and ideologically corrupted. I think they're basically monopolies. I think that's right. And so the question is, what are we going to allow monopolies to do in our society? How much can they abuse their power? If something is affecting hundreds of millions of people, if tons of these things are tied into it, we probably need some rules around it. I'm not against even going so far as to break some of them up.
And here, the boot camps come into play. A strategic move by Palantir to echo its successful customer acquisition tactics from the commercial sector into federal territory. With the promise of showcasing AIP's application to critical defense operations, these workshops will serve as a proving ground for Palantir's technological marvels. However, it's worth noting that Palantir's government work often entails specific project-based contracts, which may lack the steadiness desired by investors seeking reliable, recurring revenue. It's hoped that deeper integration of AIP across government workflows will yield a more consistent revenue stream. Tapping into the complex yet lucrative field of AI services for defense and intelligence, the partnership arguably positions Palantir for substantial long-term gains. But what about the valuation that often gives investors pause? Palantir is undeniably expensive, trading at a forward price-to-sales ratio of around 20 based on 2025 estimates. This ratio transcends the comfort level for many, typically associated with firms growing revenues well beyond the 30% mark. Despite the compelling aspects of Palantir's business, the lofty valuation might already incorporate the anticipated success of the Microsoft partnership. For the cautious investor, the current high valuation merits a more conservative approach. Palantir's rebound in U.S. government growth and promising collaboration with Microsoft might only be the beginning. Yet, the prudent might prefer to await a pullback, rare, but opportune moments when even the best tech stocks enter a more approachable price range. Remember, every good algorithm needs a bit of patience and timing. So what does this mean for Palantir stock investors? But before going through it, if you made it this far into the video, thank you. These videos take a lot of effort and time to make, so if you enjoyed them, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. This goes a long way in helping us grow. That said, back to the video.
So how do you feel, therefore, about regulation? We were talking to Roger Altman earlier about, people have been very critical of the FTC. They've been critical of the Department of Justice as it relates to deal making, as it relates to a much more aggressive approach under this current administration. And I know that you're not a fan of this administration. So how do you square that circle?
So what I'd say is I'm not against being tough on big tech. I am against breaking principles, and I am against being radical. The Lena Khan lady, she's a total radical, right? She's not respected by her staff. She's a bully. She's randomly stopping deals. She's trying to apply theories that the courts have consistently struck down. She's going to companies like Axon, which makes Taser, and for a tiny little under 10 million acquisition that worked out, trying to make them clone their entire company. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's this totally anti-capitalist, totally against companies in general. That's not what the FTC is supposed to be about. I'm on the side of holding big tech accountable. I'm not on the side of kind of radical regulators who are against companies in general. Like it's insane what these people are doing. So it's two different things.
I'm wondering how thick your skin is at this point. as a backer of Trump, even if you're generous, and we had a venture capitalist on.
In conclusion, the Microsoft Palantir alliance undoubtedly heralds an exciting phase for Palantir's U.S. government business. This partnership, blending Palantir's AI capabilities with Microsoft's stellar cloud infrastructure, is set to yield innovative solutions for defense and intelligence operations. While the stock's hefty valuation might deter some, the long-term prospects of enhanced government integration hold substantial promise. Currently, Palantir sits at $32.08, reflecting a 2.75% rise post-announcement. Analysts forecast a potential upward trajectory, contingent on the successful deployment of the partnership's initiatives and sustained revenue growth. For the discerning investor, this could spell a golden opportunity, albeit with a sprinkle of patience. So, what's your take on the Palantir-Microsoft partnership? Is this the dawn of a new era for Palantir's government engagements, or is it another overhyped tech bromance? Share your perspectives and let the conversation continue. And remember, while stocks may surge into the stratosphere, steady feet on the ground ensure the best landings in the long run. And finally, if you would like to know what companies like Palantir have been up to these past few days, go ahead and click on the next video on your screen. See you there.